So good morning, everybody. It is 8:30, Monday, January 23rd. We are going to call our regular meeting of City Council to order. And good morning. It's still a little dark out, but it's only a couple more meetings, and we will be coming to these in the sunlight, I hope. New and councillor business. Nothing came forward, but is there anything that anyone needs to speak to? Councillor Malkinson?
I'd like to say, I think this is the appropriate time. I attended the AGM of the Watershed Society last week. Cheryl Schumann came. I wanted to apologize to the other councillors for not letting you know my planned attendance when the meeting was. If there are any issues or concerns that any of the members might have about the watershed, I invite them quite openly. And as for the meeting itself, it was a good experience. Reg Whiten seems to be a very dedicated and knowledgeable water steward, and I look forward to learning with him about the strategies and priorities of the society.
Good. Yes, thank you for that. And on that, I'll also say congratulations for being legal. Councillor Malkinson turned 19 on the weekend, so congratulations.
Happy birthday.
Anything else from council? Councillor Kenny?
I attended a task force meeting that was the immigration task force that the Premier Christy Clark had announced last December, and they had their first meeting in Fort St. John yesterday in regards, or last week, in regards to the workforce crunch that we're going to be facing in the next few years with the baby boomers retiring. It was very interesting. Minister Yap is the chair of that meeting, and I don't know if I'm getting it confused with another meeting, but I know there's another task force that's going to be happening coming to Dawson Creek on February the 10th. But I'll look into it. But I think that it's something that the businesses in the community would be very interested in. And we did at Community Futures, we did a quick survey on businesses that are using foreign workers, bringing them in for their employment needs, and from that survey there was a real problem with our system in getting people. And it was interesting when I went up to Fort St. John and there was businesses there speaking to the same problems, the very same issues. So anyway, I'll let you know how that goes along.
Good, thank you. So seeing nothing else from council, we'll move on then to minutes. We have 3-1 and 3-2. These are the regular meeting minutes and the special meeting for adoption. Councillor Schumann, Councillor McFadden. All those in favor? Opposed? And it's carried. And does anyone have business arising from those minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to correspondence. First we have is 5-1. This is a letter from the North Central Local Government Association, and this is regarding looking for applications for the Measuring Up the North initiative, the Award of Excellence, which I believe the City of Dawson Creek won 2 years ago. Councillor Kenny?
For information.
Thank you. Second by Councillor McFadden. Any discussion? Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. And 5-2 is a letter from the host committee of the 2012 BC High School Curling Provincial Championships, and they are coming to council looking for sponsorship. I'm sorry, Councillor McFadden?
Your Worship, I move that the city provide $1,500 sponsorship to the Dawson Creek Curling Club in order to assist them in hosting the 2012 BC High School Provincial Curling Championships March of this year in Dawson Creek.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Wilbur. And anyone have a comment, discussion? No? Just want to say, obviously, I think our local team will be competing in that, Brenda. And I know they came second in the, I'm sorry, if it's provincial playdowns, or what would that have been?
There's two, through your worship,
yes.
There's two different teams, a junior team and a juvenile team. Actually, there's three, and a high school team. Tristan Stanky is on all three teams, and he's going to be skipping the high school team.
Okay, thanks. So this is great, great opportunity. I'm glad that council's willing to sponsor this. Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? And it's carried. 5-3 is a letter from Dawson Creek Junior Canucks. This is a letter that came to us looking for a grant request. You'll notice later on in the package, it's also identified under 7.4. So, Councillor Schumann?
So I think I would like to move this for information, and then we can deal with it later under that report. That's all right?
I think that works well. Seconded by Councillor Wilbur. Any discussion on that then? Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. 5.4 is a memo from Duncan Redfern, our Deputy Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development. And this is a letter that came in as per the request from the Art Gallery looking for access to the top of the building. Councillor Schumann?
For information.
Thank you. Councillor McFadden, seconding. And Councillor Kenny. Sorry, were you
Oh,
asking?
sorry. Never mind.
Okay. So any comments then? Jim, are we going to, this report will be made available to them even though it's in our open? Are we going to attach this with a letter to them since they had a formal request to us? Is that?
If that's your direction, Your Worship. We also have, since this letter came in, they had asked if we had alternative spaces available in any of our buildings, and I've got a response on that from Duncan as well. Short answer is no.
Yeah.
So we could send them all of that with your direction.
Yeah, I'd prefer that. Obviously, we can do it with information, but usually with information, we send a letter off to them anyway. If we can attach this report, that would be much appreciated because they need to know what our reasoning or why we had that. So, Councillor Malkinson?
I just, I thought it was a pretty thorough report from Mr. Redfern. I thought that it explained everything pretty well. And I would second sending this report to the Art Gallery.
Thank
Yeah.
you. We can do that all in one motion though, Brenda, I'm assuming works?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion then? Councillor Parslow, did you have a question? You look eager to speak.
I have some comments to make, but as relates to the letter from the Exploring Art Group that comes up next. Or is it...
That's what we're on right now.
Okay, well, I thought it might be... we're dealing with the report from Duncan, but I have a motion I'd like to make relating to the Exploring Art Group. I'd like to move that the admin research...
So if I can, we've got a motion on the
Oh
floor.
yes, thank you. Okay, so I'll make that motion when this one's dealt with.
Yeah,
Thank you.
if you could, yeah. So right now we're dealing specific to
Yeah.
their request. And so right now it's just for information, but we'll forward them this report on. And so if there's no other further questions on that. Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? And it's carried. And sorry, Councillor Parslow, it's still specific to this?
Yes, I attended the meeting at the Art Gallery last week, and I suggested that they contact Duncan, which they did, concerning the possibility of using a space at the former O'Brien Elementary School. The city currently has a lease there with the school district and for the use of the gym and the foyer area. And the rest of the school facility is unused. So they did contact Duncan, and Duncan shared that he'd be reporting to Jim Shute about this. But I would like to make a motion that the admin research the cost and the feasibility of the City of Dawson Creek leasing a space for the Exploring Arts Group at the O'Brien Centre.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor McFadden. Jim, was that already looked at by Duncan or?
Not in detail, Your Worship. If that's the direction of council, we'll get a price for you. Well, feasibility and price, I don't know if the school district is willing to lease areas beyond where we've leased, but if they are, there would surely be a space there that could accommodate the Exploring Art Group. It would just come with a cost, and the question would be whether you wish to bear that cost or not.
Okay, so we can get that information and make a decision. Councillor Parslow? Yeah.
Just speaking to this, this group has good representation, a large number of people involved, and access to the bin top is a real problem and challenge. And as people, get problems with their knee joints or hip joints or what have you, it's really prohibiting the use of that place. And I support what Duncan Malcolmson said about the Duncan's Redfern's report, that seems that we have a real problem there. But I think this O'Brien possibility, whilst we have city has access already, shouldn't be that great a problem. And I think it would really help this group sustain itself.
Okay, so we'll, I don't think that'll be too onerous then, Jim, from staff?
If council directs it, it won't be too onerous, Your Worship. Council never makes a mistake in that regard.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We just want to make sure we're not creating a whole bunch of extra work for staff. That could be a lot.
But if
of
the
work.
motion passes, then perhaps the previous motion will be to send them Duncan's report and notify them that we're looking into the feasibility of leasing them space at the O'Brien.
Yeah, thanks for that, yeah, because we don't want to say we're not doing anything and then do something. Thanks for that. So any other discussion? No? So all those in favor? Anyone opposed? And it's carried then. So we move to 5.5, and this is a letter from the Canadian Cancer Society. This is regarding Tanning is Out health promotion campaign. Councillor Kenny.
For information.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Malkinson, and you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, there's one thing I didn't understand in the letter, Your Worship. I was wondering, they suggested that we offer a 20 to 50% discount to people who make the commitment to be tan-free. How would they police that?
Well, I think that's probably why Councillor Kenny said we'll just move it for information,
Okay,
because it's
okay.
probably a situation that you're exactly right. How would we police it? How would you say have you or haven't you, and who gets a discount, who doesn't? It's an interesting concept, but I don't know how we'd govern it.
She was a step ahead of me, Your Worship.
Yeah. No, but you nailed it. That's exactly what the issue is, I think.
Okay.
Which is why you seconded it. Good job. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor for information? Opposed? And it's carried. And it's not quite 9 o'clock, so we'll skip over delegations. We'll vary the agenda to move into reports. So the first report we have is 7.1, and this is report 12.001, first one of the year, from Parks Manager. And this was around the request for quotations that we put out for the hanging baskets. And before we go, then Jim?
Yes, through Your Worship, for the benefit of the 3 new councillors, within your purchasing policy, this matter would not normally come to council, but it has proven to be politically sensitive in the past, and so it comes to you every year.
Yeah, thanks for that, because typically, sorry, is it anything under 75,000, I think, in our purchase policy doesn't come to us? Somewhere in that
Well,
range.
under your purchasing policy at 25,000 or less, this decision would have been made by the Director of Community Services.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So, Councillor McFadden?
Your Worship, I would move that the recommendation be set aside, and in fact that the city purchase the hanging baskets from Don Lear for $21,440.25.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Malkinson, or sorry,
No.
okay, we'll go
I
Councillor
just wanted to
Wilbur.
discuss it first.
Okay,
Your
so
Worship.
seconded by Councillor Wilbur, and then discussion. Councillor Malkinson first.
I was just wondering, Your Worship, why our staff was suggesting that we make the switch from Don Lear to Grand Prairie, because it's cheaper.
That's exactly right. Our policy is to go for the bid that will do the job, the one that makes sure that staff will come forward and say these people can do the adequate job is exactly what we want. And so we do not put out, when we do our tendering, that we would do it for the lowest bid that's local. We say that it's the lowest bid, that we look for the best product that will be respectful to the taxpayer's dollar. This one here is about $3,000, $4,000 difference. If you look last year, it was a matter of, I can't remember, about $500 difference, which is why we waived the policy last year and gave it to local. They weren't the lowest last year, but it was close enough where we were able to make arguments that the cost for shipping them here would have made the difference. This time, there's...
Through Your Worship, just to correct that.
Okay.
Not the cost, because the cost is FOB Dawson Creek in all cases.
Okay.
But the argument last year was the out-of-town suppliers move, basically the product is moved twice. It is grown at the location, the remote location. They're shipped to us. We store them until we're ready to put them up, and then we move them a second time. Last year there was very little money difference between the two bids, and administration confirmed for you that our policy, which is to look for the best value, not necessarily the lowest price, but the best value to the community, there is a cost to moving them twice. We can't make the same argument for the $3,000 difference.
Which is why staff would have come forward with that recommendation, which is why Councillor McFadden is saying we'd have to waive our policy.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Councillor Schuman?
Yeah, so last year I supported I may have even moved that last year, I'm not sure exactly, but the difference was really very small. This year it is not very small, it's $3,000 difference, and I will not be supporting the motion from Councillor McFadden. $3,000 is a nice chunk of change that we can save.
Okay, I have, sorry, Councillor Kenny and then Councillor Wilbur.
Yeah, I guess we make policies for a reason here, and this is one of them. Like it just kills me to award this to an out-of-town business, but it is a big difference in dollars with the local and with the out-of-town, and so I will have to speak against it just to support our policies and how we make our decisions. It's just too big of a gap this time.
Yeah. Councillor Wilbur?
I understand supporting our policies, but reading through this, Dawson Creek Recreation and Landscaping submitted the exact same bid that we accepted last year. They didn't change their price, they didn't go up. It's the exact same bid that was accepted. I realize there is a $3,000 difference. I also look at that as out-of-town companies undercutting local business. So I will be supporting that we waive the policy and that we support this company that submitted the exact same bid they did last year.
Okay, Councillor Malkinson.
Your Worship, this might be a bit of an unfair question. Was there any problems in terms of quality with the baskets or anything last year?
Jim?
Through Your Worship, no, we would report to you if we had concerns about the quality of any of these suppliers. So no, there wasn't a problem last year with Dawson Recreation Landscaping. Similarly, the references for Willow Valley check out very well.
Okay, any other questions? Just want to make sure I catch everybody. I'm kind of torn on this one too, because I mean, we have a policy for a reason. We like to be able to say we want to support the local business, but unless we put out the RFP that says we're going to be specific to hiring local first, we have to be cognizant of the fact that we're dealing with taxpayers' dollars, and the taxpayer expects us to make sure that we get them the best value for their money. And in this situation here, we have a company, albeit from out of town, but there's many other situations we have here in the community where we hire people from out of town. No different that we want to be careful. Does that mean that if Grand Prairie's putting out a bid, that if somebody from Dawson Creek bids on it, that they shouldn't get it, even if they're the lowest price? It kind of goes both ways, so we have to be cognizant of that, because we have somebody in town here that I'm sure bids on other communities as well, and you have to be careful about that messaging. Sorry, Councillor Kenny?
And Your Worship, with the Tilma agreement, we can't put that on our bid, that we will support local bids over out-of-town bids. We legally can't do that in the first place, so in that situation.
Yeah. But as Jim said, normally staff would have just made this decision and moved on, but knowing that it's always been a hot topic, that's why it comes here. So the motion on the floor is to waive our policy and to give it to the local company. Any other questions? Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? And it is defeated. So with that, we need to look for another motion.
Your Worship.
Councillor Parcel?
I would move the recommendation number ADM 12-004 from the Deputy Director of Corporate Administration regarding, oh sorry, I'm on the run, I've moved ahead. Someone else will have to move it, I don't have it in front of me.
I'll make it.
Sorry, we're still
still
on
waking up
the,
here.
because it was defeated, we
Yeah.
still have to make a motion,
Yeah.
otherwise we'll have no baskets this year. Councillor
Want me to
Kenny.
read
Yeah, you read it.
Okay. I'll make a recommendation that the report number C124001 from the Parks Manager regarding 2012 hanging basket request for quote number 2012-01 be received. Further, that council approve the quote submitted to the supply and delivery of 195 hanging baskets from Willow Valley Landscape Center Limited in the amount of $18,432.14, excluding taxes.
So that's the motion I moved.
Sure, would you like to second that then, Councillor
Yeah,
Parsons?
okay, I'll second. I thought you were reading it for me.
So, comment, Councillor Schumann?
I'm just wondering if we can't also throw in there that this be dealt with staff instead of making it a big political thing. It's under $25,000 and staff should just be able to deal with it. I mean, I don't know.
Sure. Jim?
Through your worship, when a matter comes to council and appears as though it's going to be resolved on a 4-3 vote, that is a signal to me that the citizens have an interest greater than allowing the parks manager to make this decision. I think it's in front of you for a very good reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. In the past, it's there's been lots of discussion. Very rarely have we ever waived the policy for it, but it always brings up some good discussion. So, good point. So, any other questions then on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? And it is carried. Got all that? Okay, just make sure. So on that, we move to 7.2. And this is report 12004 from the Deputy Director of Corporate Administration, and this is regarding the application for a food primary liquor license for Schindler and Gamble Restaurant Corporation, which is going to be named Fix Urban Grill, and this will be at the old Tony Roma's location out of the Best Western. Councillor Parslow, you were eager to do this one.
Yes, I was. I like being ahead of the game, I guess. So I'd like to move the recommendation from administration that the report be received, and further that staff be directed to issue public notification of the food primary liquor license application for the property located at 512 Highway 2, and further that the staff be directed to provide a report to council summarising any comments received and proposing a resolution for council consideration in compliance with applicable regulations following the deadline for comments from the public.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Malkinson. And any question or discussion from anyone? No? Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? And it is carried. 7.3 is report 12006 from the Director of Corporate Administration, and this is regarding our 2012 budget timeline amendment. And this is to move a date, one of our budget meetings, to April 2nd. Councillor Schumann?
I would move the recommendation that report number 12006 from the Director of Corporate Administration regarding the 2012 budget timeline revision be received. Further, that the third budget meeting scheduled for March 19th, 2012 at 1 p.m. be rescheduled for April 2nd, 2012 at 1 p.m.
Second by Councillor Malkinson. And do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if you're second or wish to speak, so
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I was just curious. This third meeting of the budget has some public involvement.
These are all
as well.
open to the public, yes.
Yeah, that's why it needs to be voted on, Your Worship.
Yes, and also at the beginning of the year, well, actually, I guess a couple of months ago, Council approved the full schedule so we could start advertising it for the public.
Mhm.
And so because it's exactly that, it'll be a variance to what we've already published and communicated, put on the website. We will bring it forward and make a motion to change it.
Okay.
Because it was approved by Council, it needs Council's approval to vary it. Okay, any other questions? That was a good one, though. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. 7.4 is report 12007 from the Chief Financial Officer, and this is regarding our 2012 community grants requests. Councillor Kenny.
I move the recommendation that the report number ADM 12407 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the 2012 community grant request be received. Further, that all the grant requests be denied because they did not meet the grant policy criteria.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Schumann. And questions? Councillor McFadden, then Malkinson.
I'll be speaking against the motion, Your Worship. I think the junior Canucks should be given strong consideration, notwithstanding the fact they may have missed a paper deadline. We have other organizations that have come forward unannounced for a lot more money than that, and they seem to be able to get by the deadline. So to the extent that we're denying the junior Canucks $20,000, I'll be speaking or voting against the motion, unless that can be resolved.
An option,
And I don't know how to do it.
well, an option could be, and I'm just, okay, sorry, I'll go to Councillor Schumann first. You sound like you have something you want to say there.
I was going to suggest that perhaps we sponsor the Dawson Creek Aboriginal Family Services, the Dawson Creek Seals Club, and the South Peace Seniors Access Service Society. Do a sponsorship for $1,000 for each of them, maybe $1,500 for the Seals Club, and then have the Junior Canucks be able to apply with a completed application for further consideration. That was sort of what I was thinking when I read through this, being that our, the grant requests are denied, but we do have the option to sponsor them, and we have sponsored them in the past. So
Okay.
that was sort of what I was thinking.
It's the same pot of money, just so you know.
Yes, I do
Okay.
know.
My only issue with that, personally, again, is that these people have asked for grants under our grants policy. Personally, I prefer, if they don't meet the grants policy, we turn them down and then give them the option whether to come back if they choose to ask for a sponsorship for an event, because the criteria that we usually look at for sponsorship is so different than a grant request. But around the Junior Canucks, they never went through the process. They missed our deadline. The option would be to waive, I think, Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, we could waive the policy around the grants application deadline and give them the option to apply through that. Jim?
Yeah, through your worship, so on all of the points, it is significantly different for council to sponsor an event versus a grant. A grant is where you have determined they have met your criteria and you're going to contribute money to them so that an event or an activity or a project happens. Sponsorship is, you say, this is a wonderful event or activity or project, we'd like to attach our name to it, we'd like to get some advertising bang out of it. That's sponsorship. In the past, you have, without separate application, you have converted some applications from grant to sponsorship. You have said, it's not appropriate for us to grant, but we would like to be attached to that, and you have done that without requiring a second application from the group. In terms of your policy on deadlines, in the past you have, for what you considered to be potentially worthwhile grant applications, you have said, you've missed the original deadline, but we're going to cut you slack, complete an full application, and we'll consider it at the next meeting. You have done that in the past as well.
Okay, so Councillor Parslow and then Wilbur.
Perhaps I think it's important for the public to understand the grant policy criteria that were missed. So perhaps Chief Financial Officer could outline the criteria that were not met.
Sure, and that could be beneficial even for council.
Yes.
Jim, if is that possible then?
Certainly, Your Worship. Do you want to do that, Chiller, or do you want me to?
It doesn't matter. Excuse me, through your worship. It's basically outlined in the first paragraph of the report, and the grants policy is to a number of criteria are intended to achieve one or more objectives contained in the city's guiding principle. Financial independence and fiscal sustainability are encouraged, and city funding must not exceed 1/3 of the organization's total revenues. And projects falling under a different level of government responsibility are not considered for funding. Those are the basic principles.
Yeah, so in terms of the applications, Dawson Creek Aboriginal Family Services was rejected because we did not receive the financial information that's required to make those determinations. The Seal Swim Club was rejected because Your criteria also says you will not be the court of first resort. The taxpayer money comes only when the group is unable to otherwise proceed, and the Seal Swim Club have a substantial bank account, $43,000 in savings, and so under our criteria that says until that's exhausted, the taxpayers should not be hit up for more money. And the seniors, the two seniors' requests were rejected on the basis that you also say you will not, through granting, accept downloading from other levels of government, and both levels of government have responsibility for seniors programming, whereas municipalities do not. So that was the grant criteria that was not met in that case. And in case of the Junior Canucks, it was a late application. So those are the reasons.
Councillor Parslow, did you have a quick follow-up before I move around?
Well, just to say that I think if we have policy and we have some difficulty with policy, we should first of all amend the policy. But to me, the policy seems very sound, and so I will be voting in favour of the recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
Actually, just something that I had caught when we were in Fort St. John from the Northern Development Initiative, that they said sometimes you have to say no, these are the reasons why, but they also included in that other options. Maybe the option for these groups is for us to say, no, we cannot at this time, but here is a grant application, or this is how you apply for sponsorship, so that they have that information. I'm kind of wondering if these groups are aware that there is a process to apply for grants.
I know the first three are, because they did apply for the grants and then they were rejected under our policy. The Junior Canucks missed the deadline. That's why staff's recommendation is under policy that they be denied, but council can waive that and ask to say they have an option to apply under the grants policy to see if they even fit the criteria. So, Councillor Malkinson, you were next. Did you have?
Oh boy. No. Would you please
Okay.
let?
So I'll go with Councillor Schumann then.
Yeah, so I'm in agreement that, you know, I agree with the reasons why they were denied, and I get that. But I think that we do have the ability to waive our policies when we think it's reasonable, and that's why I made the suggestions that I had made with regards to letting the Junior Canucks reapply with all of the information necessary for us to make a decision on their grant, and I still think we could sponsor those other ones.
Okay. Right now, the motion on the floor
Yes, I know.
is to go with the staff recommendation that all four be denied. Councillor McFadden?
Well, that was my question. I kind of lost track of what motion was on the floor, but at some point I would like to make a motion that we waive the policy, but I'll need some guidance as to when it's appropriate to do that.
So, Jim, on that right now, the way the motion is, would we have to pass or defeat the motion and then make a second one, or can we vary that motion to say, as per the request or the reports?
Well, through your worship, the motion to deny all the grants, all the requests because they don't meet policy, if passed, then your next motion to waive policy timelines and allow the Junior Canucks to apply would actually be contrary to the previous motion.
That's exactly it.
So it should be wrapped up into this motion. A motion to provide sponsorship as opposed to granting wouldn't be in conflict. So
So somebody could move.
someone should be moving an amendment here
Yes.
to deny 3, but to waive the timeline and allow the Junior Canucks to submit a full application for your consideration at the next meeting. Now, that may or may not pass, but that was
Yeah.
what you would need to do.
So we'd need, that's why I was, thank you for that. So there'd be a motion to amend the motion. So Councillor Schumann, are you making that?
Yeah, I would like to make that motion and
Okay.
include in there, maybe we could send a letter to those other organizations
Or give directions.
or give something that they can reapply for sponsorship, perhaps. Yeah, no?
Could be part of that motion, or it could
They-
be a separate one.
Yeah, so your amendment would be, right now it's that, so the 3, just so we're all clear, that the amendment to it would be that the 3 still be denied, that the Junior Canucks policy be waived for them so they can apply through the grants policy, and the letter that goes to the first 3 saying they've been denied, saying that they can also apply for a grant if they so choose.
Sponsorship.
Sponsorship, sorry.
Yes,
Thank you.
I like that. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Okay, just make sure we're okay. So,
I just need to
I need a
clarify.
seconder for that amendment though first.
Okay.
Councillor McFadden seconding, so speaking to the amendment.
Yeah, I need to speak to it because
Okay.
I'm just a little confused. It's morning, or I don't know.
Have
So
another coffee.
if I say yes to this motion, then I am saying yes that the first 3 are denied,
Yes,
and then Canucks can reapply. But we're not. I'm not saying yes to them.
all we're saying is that they can apply through the grants policy. That'll come back to us at the next meeting probably
Right.
with the full criteria, with staff's recommendation of did they meet the policy or not, and do we say yes or no.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else want to speak to the amendment? Okay, so all those in favor of the amendment to the motion? Anyone opposed? Okay, so the amendment carries, so now back to the original motion, which, as amended, any other discussion? Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? And I think it's carried. I saw 4 hands go up, so it is carried. Thank you. That was interesting and took more time than I thought it would, but on that, let's take a break. We're going to go back to delegations. It's a little after 9 o'clock. And we have, yes, Leanne's here. Hi, Leanne.
Hi.
And we have Leanne Lacey in attendance. And this is for proclamation, which I will read out, and then I'll invite you to come forward. So whereas the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada is a community-based organization whose mission statement is, the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada, a volunteer-based health charity, leads in eliminating heart disease and stroke and reducing their impact through the advancement of research and its application, the promotion of healthy living, and advocacy. And whereas the Heart and Stroke Foundation funds pioneering scientific research, which has saved the lives of countless Canadians. And whereas February is Heart Month in Canada, during which time dedicated Heart and Stroke Foundation person-to-person volunteers join together with their neighbors to raise vital funds for the foundation work. And whereas we commend and we celebrate the committed researchers, staff, and volunteers of the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada for their dedication to the battle against heart disease and stroke. So now therefore I do hereby urge all citizens to take this month to contemplate their own heart health, to give generously as they can to the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada's person-to-person campaign, and I also therefore hereby proclaim the month of February as observed as Heart Month here in Dawson Creek. So, thanks, Leanne. So welcome. Come on forward. Thank you.
Oh, that's good. Our Stroke Foundation will be doing their fundraising in their drive in February, so hopefully Dawson Creek will open their pockets a little bit.
Information's out on specifics, then that'll be
Well,
broadcasted?
yeah, that'll be going through the paper, just letting people know that there will be a door-to-door service starting February.
Perfect. And Councillor Schwinn?
Hi, good morning. So if somebody wanted to volunteer to be a canvasser, how would you go about doing that?
Probably give me your name. The canvassers are almost all selected, but we do have a couple of areas that still aren't covered, so I could forward your name to the organization in Prince George that's going to be funding.
Okay, so your information is, do you have a number or something people could reach you at if they were interested?
You can reach me at the Rural Bank, 719-6412, and I can forward your name to the ladies that are organizing it. It's actually being organized in Prince George. I'm taking in deposits at the Rural Bank after the canvassers go through and do their areas. So I'll be dropping them off at the Rural Bank and we'll be forwarding it all to Prince George. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, well, thanks again for coming in.
Thank you.
Can you guys do the handshake?
Sorry.
Just do the handshake again. Thank you.
Thanks. On that, let's take a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
All right, I'll talk.
Well, it's up to you.
No,
Okay, so welcome back, everybody. We will move back in the agenda to where we left off. We were at bylaws, but it appears this meeting we do not have any, which takes us up to mayor's business. The first thing under mayor's business is under 9.1, something we should all be somewhat proud of for all the hard work with staff and council. It's 12.005, and this is our strategic priorities chart. And this is after we've had our session. It's all compiled as per what we agreed to. So the process would be now, it's in front of us. So the motion to approve and accept the 2012 strategic priorities. So Councillor Parslow, seconded by Councillor Wilbur. And then the process will be, if this is passed, that it'll now be added on to the agenda under the procedural bylaw after the diary. So it'll be there every meeting for us to look at. So comments then on strategic priorities.
Yeah, is that now or after it's approved, or just my question?
Oh, sorry, for what's that?
Well, I have a question about.
Yeah, if you have a question about the priorities, this is the right time before we approve it.
Okay, great. I do have some concerns about the airport plan, Your Worship. A nearby municipality seems to be leaps and bounds ahead of us in terms of the recent press release by a major airline, and I'm wondering if we shouldn't be a bit more aggressive in dealing with this file. And I'm not sure what scheduled air carrier information means. That slipped my mind.
The scheduled air carrier, that'll be the ticket poll that you were asking about, I think. But am I correct in that, Jim, or is that something different?
No, Your Worship. The airport sustainability plan short term is to take action on the short term recommendations out of the plan, and that included the ticket poll.
Okay.
The scheduled air carrier information is the topic that Councillor McFadden was referring to.
Oh, okay.
The approach to WestJet.
Okay, that's right. Thank you. Yeah, we were being somewhat vague, and that was how we worded it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, and I don't see a date or a responsibility assigned to that.
That one you assigned responsibility to me.
Did I?
And I can report off on that after for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And Councillor Malkinson, you had a question?
I wasn't sure. For some reason, I didn't seem familiar with service policy review. I wasn't sure if the wording had been changed on that or anything. Number 5 of the strategic priorities.
Through Your Worship, the service policy is the policy by which you separate your activities into essential, important, and discretionary. And in order to do a long-term financial plan, it was considered that part of that would have to be reviewing all of your services and either affirming or adjusting whether they were in your minds essential, important, or discretionary.
So for a background on that then, Jim, about 2-3 years ago, I'm thinking, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years ago, Council at that time approved a service policy review, and we went through everything, as Jim said, that we were doing at the time, and quantified it as per what Jim was saying there. So during strategic priorities, we were talking about over the last 3 years, there's been new things that we've started doing, or things we're not doing anymore, so it's a matter of just updating that and bringing it back. Is this still accurate to what we wish to do? Councillor Parslow?
Just a suggestion that perhaps for the interest of people who may watch council proceedings,
yes,
you read out perhaps the corporate priorities that are listed here.
Sure, thanks for that. And this will also be, as in the past, it'll be on every council package. It'll be on our website as well, but I appreciate that idea. So the top 5 then, City of Dawson Creek Strategic Priorities Chart as per the corporate priorities with council and our CAO. Number 1 is a raw water reservoir, and what we've asked to do is by the end of this year is have a design. And that there is west of the city. We own a quarter section of land, and for security of our water system, council said that we want to take it to the next step and look at what are the options about putting a design together so we're somewhat shelf ready once the finances are figured out for that. Then we looked at a long-term financial plan, and this was around the community, but specifically around fair share and looking at our budget. And that's been tasked to Shelley to come forward with a report. Encana Event Center business plan is number 3, and council has said that they would like to look at the long-range financial viability of the Encana Event Center, look at what our options are, look at not just on an annual basis, I guess, is looking at 10 years down the road, where do we want that facility to be, and what can we do as a community and a council to make it bigger and better and be financially sustainable as well for the facility. Number 4 we have is our airport sustainability plan, and this was a short term we have there is to take the next steps. We did the strategic plan that we had a consultant do last year. Council received that. There were some short-term options that were identified by the consultant that council's looked at, and now we're going to have a report come forward and to see how we can initiate some of those options. And then the last one is the service policy review, which is what we just discussed, and that's number 5 that we're going to look at having that done in the short term here as well. Thank you for that, Charlie. Go ahead.
Can I just,
Councillor.
I think it's important to stress that with the long-term financial plan, what is been given to us in April is the terms of reference
Yes.
for the study.
Yep.
I know I will be asked questions about that, so it's just the terms of reference for the study.
Perfect. Thank you. So on the chart itself, are there any further comments then? Okay. Aside from thanks again, everybody, for the time spent on this, it's very important. So, all those in favor? Opposed? And it's carried. The only other things under Mayor's business that I wish to address and say thanks again to Jim and to Council is the George Cuff session. When we all went up and met with the other mayors, councillors, and rural directors up in Fort St. John last week. Hopefully, Council found it informative. I've been to quite a few of his sessions, and every time I learn something new and make notes of things that we can and look at about trying to make ourselves operate better. So I'm sure over the next couple of meetings we'll have some ideas come forward. The only other one is after that meeting there was the NDI meeting. I've been appointed as a board director now for the NDI. So that's before I was the vice chair of the Northern BC, Northeastern BC RAC. But now I've actually been appointed to the actual board, so I will be going, my next meeting I think is for 3 days down in Victoria to meet with the cabinet ministers on the terms of reference and working for the next strategic priorities session for the NDI for the year. So looking forward to spending, I think it's a 1-year term to start on there. So unfortunately you had to be a voting member, not an alternate, to be selected to that. So on that then, Jim, we'll move to the diary.
I'll kick that to Greg, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm actually at a state now where I don't even know where to start because so many things are happening. But trying to be as logical as possible here. At the Calvin Cook Center, we're finally done the encapsulant and the fireproofing. Thank God for that.
Would you repeat that? Sorry, I was still there.
Plus, it's a little shocking. We're actually done the encapsulant. The crew is gone, but they'll come back. There's more work to be done. When we go through, we'll be scratching it and affecting it. They'll be coming back to do touch-up later on. But because they're gone, we've got the mechanical people in there going great guns. They're pulling out all of the old rainwater leaders and replacing them with new ones. We have a crew doing concrete on the main floor. They're leveling the floor where the pull-out seats will be, and they're building the backup house. They're pouring that floor as well. When they're done, they'll be moving downstairs, where that floor is also all over the place, and they'll be leveling that one. And we have stairs going downstairs. The grand staircase is actually in place. So things, as I had hoped, once we got rid of that lead, things really started to pick up. So that makes me very happy. The reclaimed water plant isn't nearly as exciting. It just keeps on going. Cold weather kind of slowed down the masonry work, but it should be complete this week, and they'll be starting on the roof. And last week we received word that the permit amendment that we need in order to actually transfer the treated water to Shell should be in place by February the 1st. Excellent. And our permit from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans is actually in Vancouver for signature as we speak. So those sorts of regulatory hurdles which were kind of hanging over our heads seem to have been passed. So very good news there as well.
Councillor Parslow, a question on that?
About the Calvin Cook Centre, plus or minus 10%, are we at 40% completion or 50%? What would you guess? Plus or minus 10%.
Well, plus or minus 10. I think it's pretty safe to say we're at about 40%, maybe a little more.
Thank you.
One thing I can share here is that in talking with some of the people down there building, taking away the percentage thing, they said that, you know, the meat and potatoes behind the scenes of making the building sound, roof, decommissioning, commissioning, all that kind of stuff is very time consuming. Visually, they said you will see, once they've gotten to this point and the lead's encapsulated and we're dealing with all that once that's out of the way, once walls start going up drywall, that's when you actually start seeing a drastic change, because there's the prep work that has to be done prior to that just seems to be very time consuming, and you don't really see a lot happening because of it, right? So on that, then we'll move to the consent calendar. We have a couple of items there to be moved. Councillor Schumann, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? And it's carried. Strategic priorities chart we just approved, so we'll go forward on next meeting. I'm assuming, Jim, you have nothing to report since we just approved it.
No, Your Worship, it'll be populated at the next meeting.
Question and answer period from the public. Anybody registered?
No one has registered.
Yeah, thank you. So before we go into committee of the whole, is there a media question? Go ahead, Matt.
I wanted to confirm, I guess, with Brenda, what are the dates for the first two budget meetings?
I'd have to go to
Do you have that right in
the
front of you,
schedule.
Sean?
I will in about 2 seconds.
No.
First one is February 6th in the afternoon, but
Yep, the first one is February 6th and the second one is February 20th. Both are at 1 p.m.
Sorry, are those two public?
yes.
No, they're public meetings, but they're basically council meetings. And then the first public consultation is March 6th, Tuesday at 7 p.m. at KPAC.
But if Matt has nothing to do but come and sit through them, he's welcome to do so.
The one, like in past years, then Matt, so the first town hall meeting, March 6th, will be the opportunity where we will be going to the public with a proposal, and that's when the public, we invite everybody to come out to that March 6th meeting to look at what we have. We'll have the poster boards around the room of how the year looks to be shaped up, and that's where we look for all the input from the community of would they like to see changes, additions. That's really the important meeting we like to see everybody out at.
But if anyone wishes to watch the sausages being made, they're welcome to come to the February 6th meeting.
Will there actually be?
There will be no food, whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But that's a fair question coming from you too, yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, go ahead.
The other, just a request actually, I was hoping I could maybe catch a few of the councils before the committee of the whole, or maybe after, like before the closed meeting, is that possible?
Oh, definitely before we go on the close, but if you want, we could probably do a quick 2-minute recess before we go on to the committee of the whole, just to allow for immediate questions. I just don't want to have too long because we do have some of our members here ready to speak. So, any other questions right now then? Or?
No.
Okay, so why don't we just take a 2-minute recess, grab the counselors you need for quotes, and we'll get right back at it. Okay, welcome back everybody. We're now going to be moving into the committee of the whole. It's second meeting of the month as we normally do, and we invite people to come forward. So the first person, we're going to invite our staff sergeant to come forward. Staff Sergeant McDonald, good morning, sir.
Good morning, how are you?
Great, thanks for coming in.
Oh, thank you. All right. So it's actually been a relatively even keel sort of a period since the last time I came here, which was shortly after our homicide. And sort of read from my report. I don't know if you all have a copy of it,
Yes,
but
yes, we do.
I'll just sort of gloss over some of the high points in it here. We've had a relatively steady month, but there have been sort of decreases in a lot of the key areas that we kind of associate with our measures of busyness, and I think probably most of those are related to a seasonal thing as opposed to being related to any sort of major decrease in crime, although The one area where we did see a notable improvement was in the area of all the sort of car break-ins and that kind of thing, which those seem to have slowed down, and I think that's to be expected as a result of the fact that we sort of apprehended one person, and usually it only takes one person to create a crime wave, you know, in a community of this size. So that sort of will probably resume at the point at which they get out of jail. I guess we'll see. One of the bigger things is the cell retrofit, which was kind of enormously expensive, but it's made a big difference. The cells are actually now fully compliant, and that's quite important from the perspective of things like in custody deaths and those types of things. It's really nice to be in a position where those things are in accordance with best practices, and they are now. And we're pleased with them. They still have that new cell smell, so that's nice.
How long will that last?
Is that like a new car smell, or
2 payments? That's what.
Yeah.
The homicide is well in hand. There's still some work being done on it. There's such a protracted investigation. They take place over the course of many months, but we do have 2 people in custody, and they're both charged with murder, and the investigation is well in hand, and that's always a big thing, because unsolved murders tend to be horrifically expensive in the long term, and so that's not the case in this one, which is nice. The other thing is that we're just in the process. We've got two brand new members. They're just 2 months in right now, and you know, it's like anything else. Sometimes you get good ones, and sometimes you get bad ones. And I think we've got 2 really good ones, and I'm really pleased with that. So I think that's reassuring. They're happy to be here as well, which is nice. So, and
if I can on that stuff, just because you brought up a point, last week while I was at the mercy of, in the dentist office, pinned to a chair for 3 hours with my mouth wide open, couldn't do much talking. One of the auxiliary or spouse of a member, was in there and asked me to pass on to council and to yourself as well about your comment about how much they enjoyed here. And I know later on your report is a similar comment that it was when they found out they were going to Dawson Creek, they thought 6-8 months, a year they're going to be putting in, and they've been here I think 3 or 4 years now, and have said that this was one of the best decisions they made. One thing they liked about here, and they said, is the camaraderie amongst the members. Yeah. That there's a great group of members over there. They work well, and have fun together. The families socialize, which makes things a lot different. I guess it's a different organization over there. It's hard to reach out socially, I guess, because of the job. So it's nice when the people at work get along, and
yeah.
And so she just wanted to pass along that the community's been nothing but great to her and her family, and to a lot of the members have said the same thing. So a lot of that's not just about the community, but it's the leadership over there that make them as well. So thanks for that.
Oh, I couldn't agree more that it's working in the peace, and both at Fort St. John was a similar experience, but it is a kind of a small family here, and some of the larger detachments in the south, and I've worked in those as well. It doesn't have the same feel to it, and I think a lot of people, I went south for the weather, and I came back north for the work and the people, and so a lot of people are like that.
Yeah.
That's definitely been my experience, and people do seem happy here, and that's actually nice to see. I was speaking to. We normally would expect to lose 4 to 6 people, I think, in an average transfer season. That's sort of given about a 4-year commitment. We normally lose 4 to 6 people, and we're probably going to lose 1, and nobody's asking to leave. So that's always a good kind of barometer of where people are at in terms of how happy they are and stuff. So,
yep.
So it's kind of relieving for me. So yeah.
Good. Thanks.
One of the things that I was asked about in the last meeting that I attended was in relation to distracted driving, and so what I did is I asked our municipal traffic, or the person that takes that on, and so she has sort of focused on that particular aspect of things and written quite a number of tickets. But I also went upstairs to go and speak to the regional traffic guys and ask them sort of, what amount of work they're doing in that area, and it sounds as though that's something that they're actually putting quite a bit of focus on. they're writing a lot of tickets in that area. So it might take a little while before the culture changes, and I think that's always, you know, people have just been used to doing it for so long. It takes a little while to kind of change those habits on an overnight basis. But I think we'll gradually see an improvement in that area, and definitely we'll be receptive towards incorporating that into our traffic, initiatives that we take on. So
Perfect, and hopefully the media behind you highlights the fact that we are out there looking, giving tickets, and people should be aware.
It's absolutely true. That is definitely one of the aspects that they're focusing on. So it's probably better to just pull over and make that call. So yeah, and I think that's really, it's nice to not have much to report. You know, there have been a few incidents which have occurred, but none of the profile of the things that I brought to your attention in early November. So yeah. So.
Do we have questions from council? One question I have is, I guess without mentioning names, the downtown. I still get, which I believe we've probably had since the founding of the city, so don't take this the wrong way, still have an element right in the downtown congregating around one business all the time. The perception in the community or in the businesses down there is that, you know, they're not the most welcomed people, possibly doing illegal acts, either doing drugs or selling drugs right in the downtown. I know in the summertime, we've been quite successful over the last couple of years from what I'm hearing with our bike patrol and kind of in that area. In the winter, how have you been getting many complaints, or what's the direction we've been going in that area?
Well, one of the things that's happened recently is our crime reduction unit has been focusing on some of the initiatives in terms of checking curfews and conditions and that type of thing on people that are, I believe I know the area that you're speaking about, and that they're focusing on the individuals sort of that are gathered in that area with the intention of making sure that they're complying with their conditions and kind of elevating their profile and removing that sense of anonymity. What that's resulted in is there were actually 2 people that were apprehended on breaches of their probation orders, and those people are back in custodial sentences. So I think that may also sort of be on the decrease. We're probably going to see a little bit less of that. That's something that the drug and crime reduction people are both focusing on, because it's kind of the visible end of things. So
yeah, and I think that's probably why it comes to me, is because it's so visible.
Yeah.
It's a little different when it's taking place in a house somewhere and it's under surveillance and we're trying to get a warrant and all that. But when it's 5-6 people just standing leaning up against a building right downtown.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I think it is what it looks like, and there's no doubt about that. So that's they're being focused on.
Good.
Yeah.
And sometimes just a presence or a deterrent.
Yeah.
I find I sometimes will just pull up there and just park in my car and sit there and do paperwork and stare at them.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
It's amazing how even that
makes
deters
it uncomfortable.
them. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the staff? No? Well, thank you very much for coming in. It's always a pleasure when it's not too eventful, because of course I know how busy the members are, and if we don't have to have the serious issues, that's always a plus. So thanks very much for coming in again.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you in a little while. We'll move to 15-2, and we have Shorty. We have our fire chief in attendance to give us a little update from the last month.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir.
So you have the report in front of you. It's December was actually a relatively quiet for us. Speaking, it was almost a record-setting quietness for the amount of calls, so it's a good thing. Give us a break from all the hustle and bustle, I guess. Other than that, there's nothing extraordinary in the call volume.
No. Well, the one thing I highlighted out of that was, it's funny when you say only 9 car accidents is a plus. For the month of December, I think we were kind of blessed with the weather. Probably helped a lot in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the types of calls, we only responded to 9 motor vehicle incidents in the month of December. So yeah, the weather had I think a big part to play with it.
Good. Quick and painless. Any questions for Shorty while he's here?
No, I don't have a question.
Councillor Wilbur?
I just wanted to commend the fire department for their response time, because I was amazed when I was watching the news that the response time of our fire department for the few instances that you did have, like, really amazing. So I think they should be commended for that.
I'll pass that on.
The advantage of having a full-time staff over there, because I think your average response time was what, 3-4 minutes, if I remember.
Yes.
For last year, I think it was 4 minutes and 17 seconds, our response time.
Yeah, from the call to the place. That will save a lot of the structure and lives, possibly.
And lives.
So,
Yep.
that's good. Thanks for highlighting that. Okay, thanks, Shirley.
Okay.
We have next 15-3, Director of Corporate Administration. Hello, Brenda. Officially, good morning.
Good morning. In our department, I guess the fire department has had a little bit of contact with staff from our department. Unfortunately, there was a fire in the garage of one of our staff, and she's still dealing with that. But the quick response of the fire department was greatly appreciated. Her house was saved, and she can move on.
And more importantly, she said her cat.
Her cat,
Saved.
yes, definitely. Yeah.
Jet.
Very large cat, yes.
Beautiful jet.
And other activity in our department, of course, is supporting for human resources, and that's been taking up quite a bit of our time again. Communication, a big focus on our department as well. The Facebook page, it would be nice if we could use that even more with the community as questions arise. Go ahead and post your question on Facebook, and I'm sure someone else is thinking the same question and would like the response. So we try to respond to those as quickly as possible from whatever department it's associated with.
So if I can, if I can ask a question on that, because it kind of came up last week around the social media. Like, we do have a policy. So what is the? This will help for the people in the community asking the questions as well. When they ask a question on Facebook, what's our policy around the answering? Who answers?
We do have our administration staff. Whenever a question is posted, they read the question and contact the associate department immediately, and whoever can respond to their answer or to their question will do so. If it's something that Mayor and Council needs to respond to, then you'll be contacted for that reason. But it should be responded to within a few minutes, usually.
Yeah, depending on the research needed. Yeah, thanks for that. I just wanted that highlighted so people know that if they ask the question, we do our best to get the best answer as possible for them.
And there are some comments on there that are just comments, and we just leave that as that.
Yep.
But any questions we do respond to.
Good, thank you.
Besides that, the Energy Conference is our organizer, Johanna Koons of Mayana Consulting, is busy working on that. It's scheduled for September 19th to 21st, and there's going to be some committee meetings soon with that, but she's done quite a bit already in preparations for that. That's about it for now. Any questions?
Just one point too, though, sorry, is talking about social media and our website, that these reports are attached on our website. So if members of the public wish to see anything that's discussed in the committee of the whole or read through the entire report, they are there as well, because obviously in these meetings we just highlight certain aspects of it, so there's a lot of information people can have access to. Councillor Malkinson?
Your Worship, I think this was already asked at a couple council meetings ago, but it was mentioned in Ms. Ginter's report about her strategic priorities. The 5th strategic priority was records management review, and I couldn't remember what she was talking about. Was it storage of the bylaws and things like that?
So yeah, Brenda?
Yeah, with our records management, we do have a concern about space and storage space, and it's not just for administration, it's for all departments. And we do need to look at more secure storage for our operational services department, and we need to see if we can find better forms of storage within our vaults, that we can put more storage in there first, and then once we find more storage there, then maybe we'll free up space that doesn't require fireproof storage. That's the main concern. If there was a fire, there'd be a lot of plans that would be lost.
Especially anything obviously prior to electronic, a lot of stuff still gets put on paper, but when you look since from the founding of the city back in the 50s, there's a lot of stuff archived that we want to make sure we maintain and save in case there's an issue.
And there's another way of storing it. We don't need to actually store the paper files. If we can find a way to scan them in and store them electronically, that might be the way to go too, but that would require a lot of time as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Parslow.
I'm reading your report about the carbon tax refund program that the city's been receiving since 2008.
That's mine, Councillor.
That's you? Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm just not awake this morning.
It's all right.
Yeah.
But it's a good question. In about 30 seconds, if you want, I'll let you know.
Yes. You've got more time to prepare your answer.
If I knew the whole question.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
That's all right.
Just dangled it.
Yeah.
So before we move on to the financial officer then, is there any other questions for Brenda on her report? No, seeing none, then thanks, Brenda, and we'll move on to Shelley under 15.4, our Chief Financial Officer. Maybe prior to a question, we'll let you speak. Anything to highlight?
Sure, through your worship, thank you. Basically this time of year, it's all about getting ready for the audit and doing budget work, so the finance staff is basically doing double duty with all their year-end reporting. I basically highlighted some of it there. We're probably about 80% through budget review, getting ready to get the package for council for the February 6th meeting. And just highlighted some of the assessment information that we received. We got the completed roll just after December. And the 2012 assessment base is showing again strong growth. Residential assessment grew by 6.42% and commercial by 12.10%. And of those two percentages, the non-market or new construction percentages are 69.81 of residential and 56.12 of commercial. Those are really, really strong assessment increases for the community, and they're not volatile, but they're strong. And
so if I understand it, 70% of the 6% growth in the
residential
and residential was from new construction.
That's correct.
70% of the 6%.
That's correct. So that's new houses being built and coming onto the assessment base.
That's
so
great.
that's a good news story
That's
for
really
Dawson
good.
Creek. And more detail of that is basically incorporated into the budget package when council decides what tax rates they want to set for 2012. Once again, just reiterate, the first two budget meetings are on February 6th and February 20th in council chambers at 1 p.m. and everybody is invited to come in and observe council, go through the process. And following these two meetings are the first public consultation meeting on Tuesday, March 6th at KPAC at 7 p.m. And following that, I just basically gave a summary of the project expenditures for the Calvin Crook Center for the Arts and the Water Reclamation Project to December 31st. And because there are two major capital projects for the city this year, I thought it was important to put the funding down with the costs. And we're kind of at the end of the invoicing process, so there still may be some invoicing coming in, but again, the projects carry over into the next budget along with their funding envelopes. And then carbon tax reporting, which Councillor Parslow has a question on, but basically we'll be completing the Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program, or the CAREP. It's due to be completed by February 18th, and this is the provincial rebate program where the city basically gets rebated for the provincial carbon tax, and we have received $121,766 since the program began. So I'll stop there and maybe address Councillor Parslow's question.
Yeah, I have a hunch he has a question. Councillor Parslow.
Yes, I must stop my practice of skipping forward one ahead of the current presenter. Very good report, by the way. The 121,766, is it reasonable to say that over the 3 fiscal years that this has been in action, that it's about 40,000 a year? Is that a reasonable statement, or has it climbed?
It has climbed.
Okay.
In 2008, the carbon tax came in July 1st, so it was 6 months.
Okay.
So it was about, I believe, $14,000. And then the second year, if I'm not mistaken, it was about 60, and then following that was an increase as well. Now, the amount of carbon tax that we pay, of course, is dependent on our spending and our capital projects. So, you know, how much component of that is to do with things like fuel, utilities, that kind of thing, where we get it rebated. So it basically depends on the type of expenditure and the level of spending.
So just a supplementary question to that. You may not know this, maybe Chief Administrative Officer may know this. Is this program, or programs similar to this, in place for other organizations besides municipal operations, like school districts, colleges, or any other body that might sign on to some climate charter or something like that?
You know, I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to say I assume the school district and the college maybe, but we can find that out for sure.
Yes, so I can have my own contacts there. I just wondered because I've been reading about the millions of dollars that have been taken out of the classroom because of this sort of thing and others. Is it being returned through the back door, so to speak? And
Jim?
It's an unfair comment in the media about what's happened to school districts.
Through your worship, I don't believe it has to hospitals, school districts, and to the provincial government departments themselves. The last I had heard, it had not been. The reason it got returned to municipalities is the strenuous and effective advocacy of the UBCM, who raised holy hell about it, basically.
Yeah, I think, and I stand to be corrected, but I believe you're right, especially around the hospitals, because I know for the last 2 years, I think there's been resolutions come forward at the UBCM trying to get hospitals involved because municipalities, or sorry, the hospital districts fund the capital work for hospitals, but they have to pay more for all these increases.
As Shelley was saying, the real impact that we see on this is when we're doing a big capital project.
Yeah.
Because a significant amount of the cost of the project does end up being carbon taxed.
Yes. Charlie, a bit more?
Just one last question, and it's to you, Mayor, or you may want to, someone else may be better to answer it. This growth of population, residential and so on, is there any document around that has a sort of a population growth for the city, let's say 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I've heard some comments made by some fairly informed people that's about a population in Dawson Creek 10 years from now being almost double what it is now. So can you comment on that? Or?
I can comment just on what people have speculated. I know that there's been discussion, I think here at the city we use, is it 2.5%, 3%, Jim?
Kevin, are we using 2%?
Yeah, 2% has been a fairly aggressive
2?
number over the years. The last few years have, of course, been a little more.
Yeah. So in our operations, we kind of base that on what we think our growth will be. And then when I say the speculation in my meetings down in Vancouver, Victoria, there's been talks of, you know, if Site C goes through or if the Kitimat LNG plant gets opened. They've talked about, I think it was by 2015, they said 15,000. And by 2020, they're guessing 18,000. Now, that is way beyond the 2% growth that we kind of go, and that's why I say it's just that's just a big guess that people are throwing out there, depending on what projects may or may not be approved that may affect people coming to the area. So right now, I think the new StatsCan report has us at 12,300. Jim?
Yeah, so in answer to Councillor Parslo's question, no, there is no body that has responsibility for providing credible estimates of population increase. There are many different bodies that provide estimates. Some are pure speculation.
Mayors are very good for that. Throwing out a number that is attractive but unsubstantiated.
But part of the economic development hat, it's always
there
good.
is a the Financial Post has a publication called FP Markets that looks at various factors, economic development factors, demographics, and makes projections for the investment community. Their BC Stats makes projections. Stats Canada makes projections, and pretty much every economic development body funded anywhere makes population projections. Initiatives North in Prince George does some for the whole region. NDIT does some for the whole region. There is no consolidated body, and there is no agreement in the figures amongst all these.
Yeah, I was just going to
folks.
say they're all
But
different.
the high end is always the mayor, so it'll be less than whatever the mayor says.
Councillor?
So for city planning purposes, we lean towards the 2% figure?
The consultants who have worked for us on infrastructure studies and that sort of thing, the ones who will be doing the sewer master plan, for instance, they'll work with 2 or 2.5% as growth. Partly, though, that is because our boundaries are constrained. So we know that we will have to densify to grow within the limits. However, the area outside the limits is growing much quicker than that. All of these various projections all show population in the rural areas growing quicker than within our municipal limits because of the nature of our captured boundary.
That help? Any other questions for Shelley or anything else you wish to highlight, Shelley? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just follow up on that. Our 2011 census data is scheduled to be out February 18th, so we'll see what that number comes in at.
Yeah, and if you look at the report from the UBCM, who uses numbers, I think they have us at 12,300 or something right now, which everybody argues is low, but that's what it is. Especially myself, right, Jim?
Yes. That's just an approximate, isn't it? Like they're just guessing at that.
No. Councillor Parsons?
If this question is out of turn, just...
That's fine.
Can someone just briefly explain, many people have stated that once the city hits a 15,000 threshold, there's certain advantages to that, certain things accrue. I've never understood what the wonderful threshold of 15,000 meant.
You get to pay more for RCMP.
Is that one of them?
Through you, Your Worship, there's two answers to that. The first is there will be many negative financial consequences to the taxpayer when we reach 15,000. We will go from paying 70% of policing costs to 90% of policing costs, which will be a significant jump up. We will also cease to be eligible for small community equalization grants from the province, and that is also a negative impact to our budget. The reason you hear about it, spoken about it in a positive fashion, is for many years prevailing economic development theory was unless you reached 15,000 you would never have a Canadian Tire or a Walmart, or for that matter two Tim Hortons or a Wendy's. So that what happened there is that, similar to the discussion going on at WestJet, corporations with the big boxes, with the fast food outlets, lost their growth potential because they had exhausted all the communities over 15,000. So then they have begun with smaller market stores, in some cases smaller physical footprints, but they have moved into a lower population range. So I don't think you hear that 15,000 thrown about anymore as the sort of trigger for some of the retail, particularly development.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, thanks. Anything else for budget? Yeah, Councillor Malkinson.
If we get a population over 15,000, Your Worship, we also get a seat on the regional district, isn't that right?
We get an extra one, yes. You're exactly right.
True. Now, whether you see that as a positive or a negative depends on whether you're the person that has to sit in that seat. However, before we leave Shelley's report, at your George Cuff session, one of the things Mr. Cuff was emphasizing is that council ought to be meeting without staff with the auditor.
Yes.
over a range of questions. We have spoken to our auditor. He is happy to do that now if you wish. If you wish to wait until after the audit is in, he's happy to do that as well. What he asks is that you provide him the questions in advance so that he may be able to respond usefully to you. Up to you guys whether you would like it to be now or after the audit is in.
Thanks. And I believe they're going through the audit right now.
Not yet. It's basically scheduled for the second week in March.
Okay.
We're just preparing for it.
Okay, I see. I mean, that's up to council. Personally, I'm fine to kind of have them come in after they've done the audit so we can ask the questions. I'm not sure if we'll have any questions now to help that would, I guess, help the audit at all. It would be more of getting the information afterwards and having questions, but that's council's direction. Councillor Parcel?
There's a set of questions that George Tuff said he'd make available. Could we perhaps access those questions?
Jim, you would
Actually, I believe they're in the book,
Yes.
but I'd have to check that. I think they are.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I believe they are too, but we'll look at that.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Jim. Nothing else then? Thanks, Shelley, and we'll move on then to 15.5, and that's the report from the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development. Good morning, Mr. Henderson.
Good morning. Nice day out there. Looks like we're going to have some good weather for the week, which is nice. A couple things I wanted to touch on. I'll start with building permits. Final numbers in for 2011, just shy of 50 million in construction, so that's great to see. Obviously, last year was a record at 59, but 50 is not too shabby either. So ties in nicely with what Shelley was saying with that very strong growth in the community. With the building department, you mentioned social media, and that triggered something that I remembered. As of January 1, there's a couple new regulations that are coming into effect or have come into effect for new construction. One is sump pits for all residential construction. And what that is to divert perimeter drainage around homes that has been going into our sanitary system away from that, taking some of that load off. So any new homes being built, their perimeter drains will not go into the sewer system. They'll be going into a sump pump and pumped out into surface drainage, whether it be a rain garden or, perfect opportunity to collect that water, use it for watering purposes or whatever. So, and the solar readiness bylaw, everything was finalized late fall, and we just thought it would be a good time to implement January 1 as well. So any new homes being built will be built solar ready, as we are one of the communities that opted in on that regulation. So that's and we've put that out. We've met with the developers. We've included an information package with new building permits, and we have that out on the Facebook site and our website. So
good, thanks.
Just a couple updates on a couple other things. 21st Street, you had a report, I believe it was last meeting, on the 21st Street development. I've been in contact with the developer as late as last Friday, and my understanding was today or tomorrow that they would be starting to finish up with the TELUS work. I figure probably the better part of this week, and they would have the lines underneath 21st Street and start making some connections, and they were working with TELUS on that, so that's good to see that moving forward. Street lights up in Crescent View has been there's been a few questions around that, and it's taken a little longer than we would like to have seen, but there's a couple issues around that. At any rate, there will be at least one phase that sometime here in January will be lit up in that newer part. My understanding is that there will still be some areas that don't have the street lights lit due to the lines not being in place. The conduits are in, but the lines haven't been pulled into those areas. So it's a bit of work between the electrician, BC Hydro, the developer, and the city to make it all come together. So hopefully soon. And we will be installing new street lights on 17th Street North on the existing wooden poles that run from the top end of 17th all the way out to Imperial, just to improve the lighting along that as well. So.
Before you move past that, Kevin, for myself and for the public, is that where our borders haven't changed? That part of that road, is that still regional district or highways, or do we have all the way up to Imperial Access is ours now?
That's right. Up until Imperial Access, that is considered our street.
Okay.
Yes. So we do maintain.
So we
that.
plow, maintain
Yep.
right up to that. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And that transfer happened probably about 3 years ago, when our boundary on the east side moved up to Imperial as well.
Which is when we lowered the speed limit to 50 kilometers
Yes.
an hour on that stretch.
That's correct.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor McFadden, was that something on that too?
Just a question about the solar readiness. What additional cost does that place on a new house? And what kind of response have you had from the developers? Any negative pushback from them? Or?
Personally, I haven't had any pushback. The word I'm getting from the development community is that it may be $400 or $500 extra to do it at the time of construction.
Yeah.
And of course, it's far more economical to do it then than to come back and renovate an existing house. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One other thing is just on today that Sean and Devin headed off to Edmonton to attend a job fair at NATE, just to touch base with some potential civil students that may want to come work for the summer for us, or maybe make a career out of coming to the city. That's where we found Devin last year, and he's turned out to be an excellent addition to the department, and certainly loves the community. So they're off doing that. And that's really all I wanted to touch on, unless there's some questions of council.
Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, good morning, Kevin. There was an issue up at KPAC with water. Do you know anything about that, or if they got
As in the existing one up on 9?
yeah, sorry. Yeah, their water usage spiked incredibly. I learned this at their last board meeting, and they were going to try to get to the bottom of what was causing that increased spike in
I did hear about that, but I
Yeah.
have not heard any results of that, so I can
Yeah, I was
certainly
just
follow
curious
up.
to know if they discovered a leak or what was causing that.
Okay, I will follow up.
Thanks.
Okay. I also wanted to highlight the 91 new dwellings. I know when you were talking about the amount of development in the community and $50 million, but to me, what I look at as the number of units is really important. So 91 new housing or residential starts is great. We're hoping to see that go up that's the biggest complaint or comment, I guess, that I hear from people is there's lots of opportunity to come up here for work, not as many opportunities to find either affordable housing or even housing. So
yeah.
I'm sure if you talk to the real estate agents in town, they'd probably argue that there's lots of opportunity out there. Please contact them. But it's nice to see 91 new ones being built. Talking to a lot of the developers, that number should come pretty close again this year from what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Very much.
Good. Okay, anything else for Kevin? Okay, thanks, Kevin.
All
I
right,
don't
thank
think there's
you.
too much snow to be plowed, but thanks a lot.
Okay.
No, we need snow.
Good morning, Barry. We're at 15-6.
Good morning, Worship Council. I know I've been working with Kevin way too long when he gives the Parks and Rec weather update for the week, so I'll have to...
Well, I thought you were going to say you're starting to become a Vancouver Canucks fan.
So, right to the report. December traditionally is a very busy festive season, and the Parks and Rec staff are, extremely busy with those extras. And you can see by the report, the drop-in hockey, the toonie skates, the teen skates are always very popular at that time. And as well as a number of things that the staff put on in regards to support of families around childcare programs that we run, and they're always well received and always maximized out in our program delivery. I wanted to highlight and come back to maybe one of the important things around something that happened at the Ken at the end. Couple significant numbers coming up. Ken Bork Pool, hard to believe we're almost at 500,000 people through our pool. We've got some activities planned around that individual or whoever that family might be that walks through our door.
Perfect.
We did some stuff around, I think, 100,000 or $250,000, but $500,000 is fairly significant. And those numbers continue to stay relatively very busy. And I did a little work last week, went down and spoke with what they call the senior T, and I can tell you the people in our community are extremely happy with that. But follow to that, Anna, in her relentless, always trying to do her customer survey, has just completed an online survey, and we had over 241 people respond to the online, and 45 people had delivered information for us for customer service. So we'll bring that information forward to council as we go forward. Parks Department, one of the questions for council that we've seen, and it's mostly around seasonal challenge. Hard to be building and getting our base of our arenas built, our 2 outdoor arenas without snow, and getting that packed, but they've started that last week, and hopefully both those facilities will be up and running by the end of this week or early next week. And you know, I think right now if we don't get the snow, the heavy snow, certainly our staff can focus on that. We've been working very closely with our outdoor speed skating club in regards to maintaining and keeping the oval open, and working with them on that. So weather dependent always is a factor there. Highlight a number of special events at the end that if council would like to talk about that a little bit. And as I said, the trek to the north was so successful. Anna's now going to the South Pole. So to the people that were engaged in that, I know a number of people in the community were very passionate to that program. February 13th, 14th, I'll be getting some information out to council. We've secured those dates in regards to starting our fees and charges policy. PERC will be in Brian Johnson, who's just completed a successful working relationship with Fort St. John, and I got a chance to speak with some of the staff when I was up there for the torch cuff training. A great exercise that put them through, and again, I'd introduced this to the seniors at the pool the other day, and reached out to them to say I'd like to probably even work with them on that Tuesday to have Brian stop down and say hello to the seniors and start some of that community engagement that we want to have with that process. So February 13th in the afternoon will be the time that I'll be working with Jim to try and line up those dates for council to get some of that information, sort of the 101 governance around that, and council gets that base, then allows us to then go out to the community to have that understanding, work with our community groups, and more so specifically on the 14th, work with our staff in regards to pulling that together. I'll have Shelley, some of Shelley's staff involved, and as well in Canada Event Center staff to get a good overall look at that.
So what we're looking for there is council to set aside 2.5 to 3 hours in the afternoon on February 13th.
And we should have that out today as well. Okay. Finally, and we're just, I think Duncan and I are going to hopefully get a chance to slow down this week to try and put together a little bit of a synopsis of how we want to shape our report. As you know, our portfolio has changed quite a bit. How we can bring information and sharing around some of the HR responsibilities that we deal with. I was very thankful that Brenda shares some of Tyre's time, and we've been very busy on a project that Tyre's been working with us, and how we report back on quality in relationship to its linkages back from council strategic planning back to our levels within the community and our department accountability to council. Finally, I wanted to just mention for the notes, and there was an arena privilege incident we happened to work with. I just want to go to say that, you know, this is really an outstanding group within our community, and I think this is a good news, bad news story in some way. The good news is that we have policy, and policy protects staff, and it allows us to move that forward within our community, sets the boundaries for our staff to know what council's decisions are in that. In this situation, things were dealt with, and the group has come forward and submitted a written request and information back through our department, which I forwarded on to council. And I can just, you know, for the record say is that this group is an outstanding group, and we'll continue to work with them as we move forward. And incidents occur and things do happen, but anything from mistakes, you can always get better. So with that, it's been dealt with, and I think council should feel comfortable with that. We do in the department.
Okay.
Okay, and finally, I just have to, I thought it was good news when my daughter moved, and Now it looks like the helicopter pilot, we had great news at Christmas. They're expanding their family and want to move to Dawson as well. So I have to slow down the population growth of our family in the west. But we're quite excited that they're expecting their first and looking to move to Dawson as well.
Excellent.
Any questions?
Part of that 2%, Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, we're at 3, so we're over the 2.5%.
Thank you. Good morning, Barry. The women's under-18 championships in November, is that a minor hockey hosted or city hosted?
That was a partnership that we, as Parks and Recreation,
yeah.
But through that, we'll be reaching out to minor hockey. It's very important that our partnerships within anything to do with hockey, not just locally but regionally. One of the legacy programs we wanted to do is expand female growth of the game, and not only that, but provide opportunity for growth around coaching opportunities, administration support, and special events around that for growth of the game.
It says national, so I guess right across Newfoundland to BC?
Yeah, that is a national event, and it's our program of excellence. That's the stepping stone. The next is under 20 into the national program. So
right.
Those are our future national women team players that we'll see, and provincially each province has representation to that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parcel.
Barry, just referring to your report, under the section public served,
yes,
that part?
Yep.
Again, as with all these staff reports, I really appreciate them. They're very good. And you got great stats, great, figures and stuff, just like I am, and appreciate that. When I read this climbing wall, 348 participants, I couldn't help but ask myself, well, okay, how many individual different people are there using the climbing wall? I mean, is it, for instance, 12 people using it 348 times? You see what I'm trying to say there?
No, for sure. Yeah, and we can.
I wondered if it might be a useful picture.
Anywhere they're coming from, and
walking track. Not that I want any, but in any extra work necessarily. But if people sign in, we could sometimes tally how many different people are using them.
The scary part about how Anna collects data is she does it so well, and I think I'll just follow up with Anna and ask her, what type of breakdown. I know for we ask all of our out-of-town participants to try and log in, so we know who our user groups are that either cross the border and come visit us, yeah, that statistic is very easily broken down into age category, female, male, youth categories, etc. So we can try and get a little more data. We had at one time, Councillor Parslow, almost too much information. As it built, we used to give the monthly pool and then data, and it had a cross-reference right back to when we moved from the old pool. Whatever, if you required any additional statistical information, just let us know.
Go ahead.
A question that's not related to his report, but it's...
Are you on the next one already?
No. That's a shame. No. But I think it's important for us to begin to reflect on this. Watching the news this morning, I learned that hitting in hockey for recreational hockey is going to be banned next season. That has some implications, doesn't it, with so many of our teams playing in Alberta. If they continue with the hitting, that we will have to be primarily for recreational hockey in BC tournaments. Does that add extra costs and problems for the recreational hockey group? This is youth, isn't it, and young kids?
Right across, and I think I could probably keep the... that's my passion, is the hockey side of that comment, but I would leave that to both. Jim sits as a board member on BC Hockey, and I sit on the board level at Hockey Canada. It's a significant challenge across there, and will have implications whether that's recruitment, retention of athletes over time, whether that's positive. But personally, I think it's a good time to address that over a lot of issues in the game currently today.
What's in front of BC Hockey's membership at the annual general meeting, and it requires a positive vote before this is in effect. Okay. There is a motion sponsored by the Lower Mainland that there will be no body checking at any recreational level, and that there will only be body checking at bantam and midget on the rep level. That may or may not pass. If it passes, we will be out of step with Alberta, which allows full contact at rep or recreational for Pee Wee, Bantam, and Midget. Most districts, and in BC hockey, hockey is divided into districts. So we are the Northeast Yukon district. But in BC hockey, there's only 2 districts remaining that allow contact at recreational hockey, or body checking at recreational hockey, and that is the Northeast and the Northwest. And it is because they play in these Alberta leagues. So the effect of the resolution will only, for recreational, will only apply in those 2 areas. Everyone else has already moved to no body checking. The movement away from body checking at Pee Wee would make BC and Quebec the 2 branches that don't allow body checking at Pee Wee Rep. What would have to happen on the recreational level is, and at the Pee Wee Rep level, is that those teams in Dawson Creek, in fact in Northeast BC, would either have to form their own leagues within Northeast BC, or they would have to travel across the mountains to the Caribou to play games. Because yes, the Alberta, travel to Alberta and membership in the Alberta leagues would only really be available to Bantam Rep and Midget Rep. It would have an effect.
So I'll only wrap up from the BC political side of that from Jim on that governance, but it's one of the 6 priorities of Hockey Canada to address that right across the country.
Okay. Okay, thanks a lot, Barry. Before we go into Ryan, for those who have been around for a while, we know how this could be. So does anybody need a 2-minute break? Look, okay, 2-minute recess.
Whoa!
No dig there.
Oh, wow.
Okay, thanks. Welcome back, and we're moving on in the agenda. We're at 15.7. Last one we have under the Committee of the Whole here. We have Mr. Ryan McIver, who is the General Manager from Canada Event Centre. We've asked him to come in and highlight a few things, but more specifically around the economic impact study from a few years ago. So thanks, Ryan. Good morning.
Good morning. I promise to be quick.
I'll take as much time as you want.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the liberty then. Back after the election, Jim Shute asked me to come in and present at the first or second Committee of the Whole, just sort of give an update who Global is, what we do, why we do it, etc. We provided a bunch of background information for you that has been done previously. Last year's annual report, the economic impact study that Tourism Dawson Creek has done, just as background documents for you. But I just really wanted just to work through, as part of the document that you've received, is, you know, there's a lot of questions about who is Global Spectrum, and the reality is that Global Spectrum and its parent companies are a very big animal, right? Comcast Cable, who has purchased NBC Universal, so it's a very big company, and from that there's a partnership between Comcast and Spectacor, which is Ed Snyder. He's a private businessman, and he partnered with Comcast, and with that they collectively own a bunch of different assets, which is one, the Wells Fargo Center, and 2, the Philadelphia Flyers. And that the Wells Fargo Center is where the Flyers play out of. They own the Flyers Skate Zone, Global Spectrum, Ovations Food Service, Front Row Marketing, New Era Tickets, and last year I believe it was Pacquiolin. So the company is a very large company when it comes with respect to facility management and the opportunities that come with being a facility management company and providing one-stop shopping or services. With that, just taking a little bit closer, Global Spectrum, currently we have 112, and I think as of last week we're up to 116 venues. And over the last year, Global Spectrum collectively hosted 12,251 events with the event attendance over 20 million people, with gross ticket sales over 323 million and gross revenue of $633 million. With Global Spectrum, there are 3 sort of subsidiaries as well. There's Global Spectrum Asia, Global Spectrum Europe, and then Global Spectrum Canada. And with that, specifically with Global Spectrum Canada, there are 8 sort of venues that Global Spectrum manages, and 3 are in Ontario, and 3 are within British Columbia. So you've obviously got Dawson Creek, you have Penticton, and Penticton is a campus, so they have the convention center, the arena, but also they run a memorial arena, the old memorial arena in Penticton. There's Abbotsford, we have Windsor, Oshawa, Ontario, and then our flagship in Canada, which is the John Labatt Centre in London, Ontario. Again, as we sort of dial it down a little bit more, we have the Northwest Support Team for Global Spectrum, which includes the BC buildings, but we have a facility in Everett, Washington, the Comcast Arena, and there's a convention center and a twin pad arena. There's a twin pads as well as an arena as well, and so collectively it provides really good support network for the venues and for Global within Northwest part of the continent. So Global Spectrum, we're an experienced facility manager. We have over 40, we run over 40 arenas, 32 convention centers, 16 stadiums, 21 miscellaneous facilities, which would include like amphitheaters, fairgrounds, entertainment and retail districts, as well as 6 performing arts centers and theaters. Really the gamut is sort of, the spectrum is far from running the University of Phoenix, where the Super Bowl is going to be in 2015, I believe, right? So we have a lot of experience with large stadiums and large events down to small facilities, down all the way down into Enid, Oklahoma, and I think it's a 600-seat performing arts center. So it's really a wide range there. In terms of the scope of services, every contract is very different, and it really depends on what the client wants. So in this case, the City of Dawson Creek has hired Global to really do a full scope of services, including before even the building was open. So that's from a management and administration and finance, from event booking, public relations and sales, pre-opening services, event management, and operations. And so all those aspects from Global Spectrum is within Dawson Creek. And then further from that down, you can take it to food and beverage, ticketing, corporate sales, etc. So all aspects of the business are here in Dawson Creek. Why Global Spectrum? The company drives more events. We look and drive increased revenues. We manage costs. We drive the bottom line. We always are looking for partnerships. It's about the customer, and it's about the customer experience. Those are sort of the 5 sort of areas that we are always looking to strive for. Specifically, we provide experiences. We provide quality of life and economic impact, and we provide a wide range of demographics. And I think we've done a really good job of based on where the industry is right now, of providing a wide range of events for the community, from family shows to rock to country to different genres, right? To Gordon Lightfoot's, etc. So why do we do it? It really comes down to it's what you want us to do. It's what you hired Global Spectrum to do. So it's really our mandate, and it's what we've been contracted for. And in 2009, and I know, I believe it's in 2009, Dustin will correct me if I'm wrong, that it was the economic impact of the entire complex, not just the event center, was taken into account. And so the economic impact is shown there. And I did provide a copy of the report and the presentation, and I do believe that Dustin, when he's coming to see you at the next meeting, will be touching base on that as well. One of the things I thought was really important is to talk about industry trends. The artist used to make money by selling records and CDs, and that has sort of gone away to the download. So there isn't a lot of money to be made now necessarily by making albums, etc. Record labels are sort of going by the wayside as well, and people are becoming more viral using YouTube and generating that grassroots market. So what that means is really the money is made for the artist is when they tour, because they have direct control. They can go right into the communities, they can play their music, etc. And so they have direct control over that money instead of splitting it with record labels and paying for CDs, etc. So the live touring market is increasing, but the industry is hurting. Specifically with the economy changing in the States. A lot of the family shows and some of the promoters, private promoters, really lost a lot of money, and a lot of them have gone out of business. And so there's been a gap within the industry with respect to, not necessarily with the artists, because there's lots of artists out there. They know that they need to tour, and the more times they tour, the more places they go, theoretically the more money they make. But there's less promoters, individuals that are out there with the pockets to buy the tours or rent the tours theoretically and run them through the venues across North America or within certain regions. So the economy has had a big impact, especially in the States. A lot of the artists are American, and with that, the artist management, their agents, etc., don't necessarily think of Canada as their first place to go. You know, Canada's a population of 30 some odd million, where the States is 330 some odd million, right? So there's definitely more opportunity in the States, but the economy is definitely taking a hit and has major impacts. Promoters has been is a challenge right now. Typically, there's only a few in Canada. Live Nation is huge and international, but Live Nation has had some dramatic challenges. They are a publicly traded company, and as if you've watched the newspaper, etc., they've lost hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars. So they're trying to redo their business model and do their business smarter by doing a whole bunch of wide range of different things, as well as there really isn't a secondary promoter in Canada. There are a few pockets of businesses or individuals that will buy shows or events and take them across Canada, but it's definitely far smaller, the number of people that are doing that compared to, say, 10 years ago. That being said, I feel that we're pretty well positioned with the people and the businesses and the promoters and or the brokerage firms and agents that we're dealing with to provide the best possible mix of opportunities for our venue. When we look at the market across Canada, there's obviously primary, secondary, and tertiary markets. Toronto would be a primary market, secondary, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton. Tertiary would be a Regina, and it sort of goes from there. And Dawson Creek, you know, if you look and you go down the scale, we're definitely down far in the mix. But traditionally, when you look at it, we're definitely in a tertiary market, and because of the where we're located, part of our challenges is geographic, where we're situated, and for us to get acts, we definitely have to be routed with other concerts, other venues, and other acts. So it's a little bit of horse trading and working with the other venues and working with them, say, hey, we're working on the show, can we have your help, and you know, does it make sense in your community or your venue to do that? And that's where that Northwest support team works really well with Global, that we work with our partners in Penticton and Abbotsford and Everett to help generate the business. And then we also work with you know, Edmonton, and we work with Prince George, and we also work with Grand Prairie in some cases too, just depending on what is happening. So our events, you know, we've been, you know, can't imagine the success that I feel that we've had with the venue in terms of the quantity of events, but the quality of the events that we've had since we've opened. As of January 16th, I've been with the company for 4 years, and in those 4 years, you know, the first event was May 25th, which was Robert Munch, and you know, since then we've had some exceptional caliber acts, artists, and family shows, etc., that comes through. So I feel very confident about where we have come from and where we're going. I believe that one of the things that's very important to know, that there are sort of 3 ways that the business works. You self-promote events, you co-promote events, or you rent the venue. And in most of the case or circumstances is that we have been self-promoting the events. There are very few promoters or people interested in being in the concert business or event business within Northeast BC or within sort of Western Canada. But we have driven to and communicated and talked to several of those promoters, and we have started co-promoting, which means equal risk and equal reward, in that we're sharing the risk with that. So we're splitting any profits and we're sharing any losses as well, if there are any. When we self-promote, it's 100% risk and 100% risk or reward. And then the best case scenario is just rent the venue, in that we just, the promoter calls or whoever it is and says, hey, I'd like to book the venue on X date, and we have absolutely nothing. All we do is supply the venue and the staff and whatever they require, and we have no risk. And we have, we're doing all three of those. We work with Live Nation and we work with other promoters to either rent the venue or co-promote, and in some cases we also self-promote as well. We have, again, a part of our success is to celebrate it. In 2009 and 2010, we were nominated for the Canadian Music Industry Broadcast Awards as a Major Facility of the Year under 8,000 seats. We should be hearing one way or the other if we have been nominated or not for 2011. Those should be coming out here shortly. Last year, we had Alan Jackson come back through the venue approximately a year or so after he was here the first time. His management called us directly when they were coming back to play Calgary and Edmonton and said, hey, we had a great time and we want to come back. So that really tells us that we're doing a good job. Doc McGee, who is KISS's manager, as well as represents various other number of artists, was at a conference in Nashville and specifically mentioned Dawson Creek a dozen times to 400 people within the industry, and providing a positive reputation and experiences that they had. And it's the overall experience that I feel that our staff and the venue provides to the artists and the managers as they roll into the community. I've sort of given you a highlight from 2008, 9, 10, and 11, and 12 as we go forward, sort of our number of events that we've had and the attendance. The number of events doesn't necessarily reflect the number of concerts or anything like that. This is from a private building, meeting to a concert. So it's everything that we've done, and specifically with the attendance levels, it's all tied back to ticketing, the number of tickets been printed, pulled, people coming to the venue, as well as walking track numbers, etc. So the attendance levels provided here are pretty, are the whole gamut as well. In 2011, we're just finalizing our year end, the December's financials, etc., and getting it ready for Miss Wolf. So those numbers are approximate numbers, but I feel pretty confident that they'll fall within the numbers as listed there. In 2012, we're just finalizing the budget to get to Miss Wolf as well, and I really am. I have a general idea, and I put 84 events in, and there have been a few event changes, so that number has actually decreased by about 6 right now. So once we get the final budget done and we confirm a few more events or not, we will be putting forth our budget to Miss Wolf here within the next couple of weeks. I think it's important for us to look at 2012 as our events that we've confirmed. We've got a pretty heavy event schedule, and if you look around the region and or Western Canada and look at Kelowna and Prince George and a few of the other communities around Red Deer, Lethbridge, and just compare the event schedule, I think you'd be very pleasantly surprised on where we stand with our event schedule compared to, say, the other event centers and their proximity to major urban markets, that we're doing very well with the number of events that we're having, but also quality of events. This morning we announced, and I know you all will be attending, Five Finger Death Punch. So I look to see you all there on April 2nd in the mosh pit. I think it's, yeah, and you've already asked for the tickets, I know, Councilor.
You'll be running the penalty box for that one.
That's right. It's important that we do the best that we can do, and that with that, it's important to know where we're going. So we have sort of undertaken the opportunities to work with Gordon McIntosh, who you use as well. We've done these before, but we really have enjoyed working with Gordon and how he does his strategic planning. I don't really want to call it strategic planning on our side necessarily. It's more priority planning for the departments, the line managers, and their and their subordinates. So we did this right before your workshop on January 4th and 5th. Our top 5 corporate priorities are broken out, and I did attach for you sort of the whole building aspects of where we're looking to do and to roll out. And I did provide to Mr. Shute, I believe in mid-December, where we stood with our 2010 priorities. And we, as we've gone through it, we're very presently surprised that we knocked off 95% of all the items listed within that document as the priority set out by the managers and directors. So with that, that's my presentation, and it's I could talk for another hour if you wish, but
we know you could.
But I believe that yeah, that should be fine for now. Does anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Ryan. I'll start with Councillor Schumann.
Good morning, Ryan. Thanks for that. I was on Facebook last night and I seen a little thing about CBC is not coming for our curling event. It's just going to be CTV Sports or Sportsnet or
Sportsnet
somebody?
Pacific.
Yes.
Can you comment on
we
that?
found out, I'm going to say late, 11 o'clock Wednesday night or really early Thursday morning that CBC and iSport Media Management and or the Canadian Curling Association, I'm not too sure where and what, they're not working together anymore. There's various rumors on why. Right now we're working with iSport to finalize what the plans are for this event coming this week. My understanding that it is Sportsnet that will be here, but I have not heard any. I have not any confirmation with that right now. So yes, it has changed. We are expecting television coverage. That's one of the reasons why we went and have gone on with the event because of the national exposure that it does bring to the community. So we're just working through those details. I don't have any answer for you with respect to when, what, etc. I'm waiting for some information as well to ensure that the broadcasting happens.
Okay, so buy a ticket. Don't stay at home, watch it on TV.
I
You may not be able to. Yeah, it may be blacked out.
I'm covered for the whole thing.
There you go. Councillor Parslow?
If I have too many questions, cut me off, we can address them some other time. Have you found where Good Fair, Alberta is yet?
Have I? No,
Yes.
I have not yet.
Okay.
No.
That's an insight.
It's an inside thing.
Inside thing. First of all, I appreciated Ryan meeting with me on Friday. It's always good to meet with Ryan. I really appreciate his commitment and enthusiasm, for sure. Just information, I just want to make sure I understand this. The partners that you list in your report, in the Encana 2010 report, Ovation's food service, Front Row Marketing, and New Era Tickets, are they subsidiaries of Global Spectrum?
Yes.
They are, okay. Without disclosing things that you shouldn't do, so just have that caveat there. How does Global Spectrum make its profit here out of the event center?
It's a management agreement. So Global Spectrum has a contract, 10-year contract with the city of Dawson Creek, and we're in year, I think it's 4 and a bit, because there was pre-opening services. And with that, Global Spectrum, with the management agreement, is a management contract. So Global Spectrum receives a management fee to do the work here within the community on your behalf.
So it's just that amount of money that's specified?
Yeah, and then I have to go back and check the contract for you, but I believe if we meet or exceed budget, there is a performance aspect to it as well.
Under the contract, there's something on a shared revenue if you exceed the budget and it's profitable that way. Right?
That's right.
I think.
Okay.
Other than that, that's the only money that Global Spectrum makes is the management contract.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have another question? Or
Yes.
It looked like I might have created another one.
Well, you're in good form today. That's great. Well, Just a couple of questions as it relates to your strategic priorities chart. What does the item number 3, SPCM space/plan city interest, what is that about?
The South Peace Community Multiplex.
Yes.
So what happens is that over the 4 years that we've been involved directly in the facility, that there is unused space within the facility, and when we did the tour back on January 7th or whatever it was, right? We toured you through some of that space, and so it's really just finding out where you are, what your thoughts are, what your ideas are about that space, so we can either help you or not, right? There is a Global has a convention center people. There's a wide range. We have a wide range of people that can help and assist. It's just finding out where you stand and what you want to do with the space. I know that there's been lots of requests or thoughts and ideas about what's going to happen with the space, and so it's one of the things that I've tasked myself to do, is to sit down with yourselves or through Mr. Shute to figure out where you are with it, or what you're doing with it, or not doing with it, or whatever it is, and to find out what is going on or not.
Okay, it's still the same, your priorities chart. What item 4, would you expand on the event package pilot? What's that all about?
So, the event package pilot is what happens is that we've had a lot of staff turnover because of some maternity leaves, and so what happens is that last year we were providing pre-event packages, food and beverage, come for dinner before you go to the show, etc., etc. And so what we're looking at doing is to re-roll that out to again drive the bottom line, drive more revenue opportunities. So it's creating event packages. So whether it be, I don't know, for Five Finger Death Punch, doing a sound check party beforehand, so people can, come to the venue an hour ahead of time, buy more merch, buy more food and beverage, because they're there ahead of time. Therefore, theoretically, they will spend more money, and we will take the money gladly out of their pockets.
Okay. And one last, I'll rate this the last one, is the bottom line. We all know the event center made expense. The city had to put in about $1.4 million. In my meeting I enjoyed having with you on Friday, and I'm not putting you on the spot here, I hope, but from your expertise now, I mean, you've been working with this for 4 years, I came from that meeting with the impression that you felt that it's not realistic, correct me if I'm saying something wrong here, it's not realistic for us to conceive that the event center will ever turn a profit.
I think within our conversation it was at this time there is a deficit, an operating deficit to run the facility. I think when as we look at the unused space that is there, the picture that Global has within its management contract, at that time the conference center, right, way back when there was supposed to be one, I think that at this time within the current scope of work, etc., that Global's been doing, right, I think that there is and will continue to be an operating deficit. I think looking at perhaps again the conversation with Mr. Shute and what that staff direction looks like, right, what does the future look for the facility, and is there going to be a continued operating deficit? I have a personal opinion about that, and I think that that there will be some sort of deficit with it. I think that with our location, and although we drive the bottom line and drive the events, there are some true factors of working and living in the north that there are some greater expenses with some of that stuff.
That's all. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Wills. Any other questions for Ryan at this time? Councillor Malkinson.
Mr. McIver said that Global hires or rents tours. I was kind of wondering how the company actually attracts certain acts to perform in Dawson Creek.
It's a good question.
a lot of it comes down to networking and building the relationships. We have several brokers and agents that we deal with on a daily basis. In some cases, we're on the phone talking about their kids, what are they doing, how's life, etc., and really developing that relationship. Global Spectrum as well. Each general manager is responsible to book their venue, but we also book everyone else's venue as well. It may not be an event for us that fits our market, but I will pass that lead on to Penticton, Abbotsford, or Windsor, or wherever it might be. So every general manager has a responsibility to book theirs, but help and assist book the other ones, and we share leads and information. At the end of this month, I'm heading down to LA to go to Polestar. It's an industry conference where all the agents and managers go, and we have there's an industry conference, and so there's a lot of opportunity to get face to face with these agents, promoters, and managers. But it's really the individual relationships that we're reaching out to every day, and providing the best opportunity, the best deals, and the best experiences, not only just for the agent and whatever, or the manager, but the contacts that we have to make it happen.
And a second question. In the economic impact analysis of the multiplex, this isn't necessarily a question for Mr. McIver, but there was a section there under revenue for tax revenue. I was wondering what sort of tax revenue, if any, the city sees from the multiplex. Or does that not make any sense?
It will to Shelley, I know that, or Jim.
No, I believe Dustin actually would be the person who could answer this, but I believe in the study it was talking about taxes paid to federal and provincial government.
Okay.
And the city pays that, isn't that right?
No, these would be paid by...
I'm sorry.
Or employers or wages.
Ticket holders would pay an amount. As an employer in Canada Event Center pays an amount. As a restaurant, White Spot pays an amount. That's what's being calculated there.
Yeah.
My mistake, I guess.
That's fine. And one thing, though, to your first question there, that council years ago, one of the benefits of looking at going to something like Global Spectrum rather than just a local person running our event center, one of the big things was the contacts, that networking, the amount of facilities, as Ryan highlighted at the beginning, that Global Spectrum and Comcast have. That advantage for being able to bring acts to our community over somebody else's is hugely beneficial, having that network. So, Jim?
Yeah, through your worship, once that network has generated the opportunity, it's actually like a real estate deal. The venue makes an offer on a legally binding document very similar to an offer on a house, real estate, and then the promoter and or agent and or artist either agrees or does not agree.
Yeah, it's a little bit more complex than just saying, hey, you want to come jam in our facility?
It can be very interesting at the end of an evening settling a show from what is supposed to happen and what does happen, right? It's just the reality of some of the things that happen.
That's right. Well, thanks very much, Ryan, for coming in. It's always good to get an update from yourself and the facility. And
we'll be back in April when we deliver the 2011 annual report for you. So once we get that done and the financials, everything wrapped up, we'll be back.
And between now and then, we're looking forward to hopefully hearing about some more great acts that
Five Finger Death Punch. Get your tickets, Councillor.
I might go with Councillor McFadden.
I'm just hoping for ACDs.
Yeah, right. Thanks very much, Ryan. So on that, Council, on that we will go to 16.1. We need a motion then to move into the closed meeting. Councillor Schumann, seconded by Councillor Wilbur. All those in favor? Opposed? And it is carried. Thanks again, everyone. We'll take 5 minutes for the media. And
so, Bert, are you going to be at your office after this? I don't think our close will take too long. I'm